You're listening to SM Media, the number one place for exclusive Scottish football content. Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Scottish Football Show. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. I'm going to say just before we start this show, this is probably going to be a bit of a roller coaster because, as we all know, VAR is now implemented in Scottish football, and the fears we had of whether VAR would dominate the podcast is certainly coming to fruition. To join me on this week's episode, I'm delighted to welcome former Celtic, Motherwell Ross County player, former Martin manager, Paul Lawson. Paul, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Scott. It's a pleasure to be on.
I'm looking forward to this. It's great to have you on. Obviously, Banks of D now, but we'll get on to that in a minute. And it's a pleasure to welcome back Lewis Anderson. Lewis, it's a pleasure to welcome you on. Thanks for joining me again.
Thanks very much, Scott. Yeah, as you said, a historic weekend for Scottish football, so looking forward to delving into it.
And the thing with historic weekends is there's usually a lot of talking points, and this is going to be no different. I think we're going to have a busy show. But Paul, before we get into talk about the weekend's action, obviously back playing with Banks of D, obviously left for Martin in the summer. What's it like back playing with a team like Banks of D, obviously being promoted? How's it been like kind of getting back into playing and kind of leaving management? How's it been since you've went back into Banks of D?
First of all, it's been great. The club have been fantastic. I think for me, due to the management side, I probably stopped playing properly sooner than I really should have. And that comes when, and you learn from things. You know, people said to me I couldn't do the player, well, not me personally, but the player management role is very difficult. I thought I could do it, but ultimately my playing time sort of took a hit. So when leaving there, I've almost had a scratch needing itched. You know, I just wanted to get back playing, even if it's for one season. But I'll see how my body holds up, and if I can get a couple of seasons out, it'll be fantastic. But you know, on the whole, the club's been great. Great bunch of lads, and almost an historic season for the club. Mm-hmm. You know, get first season in the Highland League, so that was exciting as well, and a good challenge. And speaking to the manager in the summer, I think he just felt there was a number of boys in the team hadn't played at that level before. So taking in likes of myself and Neil Gall from Inbrewery, and just a bit of experience to help the boys along. So I think I'm going in just wanting to enjoy as much as I can. I've picked up a few little niggly injuries, which I guess is to be expected, having not played for so long. But no, the club have been very supportive, and like I say, it's been great so far.
And obviously this weekend was meant to be a Scottish Cup occasion. The club obviously had a bit of an issue, but how's it been? Like, one thing that stands out to the Highland League is you know yourself, obviously being there for the past couple of years with Martin, is that it's a really good standard this year. There's a lot of teams kind of in amongst the top, like Brechin, obviously had a great start. Brora is there, Buckie, Thistle, Fraserburgh, obviously defending champions. It's a really good standard in that league this year. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think even the teams that finished sort of near the bottom of the table last year, you know, the likes of your Turriffs and Lawson, if you see a big change in them this year, they're picking up points early doors. So it's certainly a strong league this year, and we've added to that as well, Banks of D. So it's great to see, and it just shows. I think for a couple of years when Cove were there, they kind of almost ran away with it in a sense that I think they lost the last season before they went up. They lost one game, I think. So it seems to be, you know, there's more competitive games, and certainly there's probably more of like a top 6-7 rather than a top 4, all capable of taking points off each other. So it's going to be a good season.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll touch a wee bit in the Highland League later on in the show. But Lewis, before we get into talking about the games just individually, crazy weekend. You were at St Mirren Dundee United. You saw VAR firsthand. What is it like as a spectator to see this? Because I've never been at a game with VAR, so you've beat me to that race. What's it like to see a VAR work in the flesh?
Incredibly strange. It's going to take a bit of time for everyone, I think, to get used to, particularly some of the speed of the decisions that were being made. I mean, we only had one kind of real major talking point yesterday, but it took over 3 minutes to kind of resolve, which is something that over the course of time will have to speed up. Fans we're growing increasingly frustrated with each passing second. So, but ultimately, it will probably benefit the game in the long run. I think we've seen it down south for a number of years now, albeit that they're probably making some calls recently that have been slightly questionable. No, I think both managers in particular as well spoke afterwards, and they seem to think that it will bed in quite well. Stephen Robinson, he was particularly offered a lot of credit to the way the match officials handled the situation yesterday, which we'll come on to discuss, I'm sure. But it's very strange. It will take a bit of a time to acclimatise to, but I think ultimately in the long run it will prove highly beneficial.
Let's start with the game that probably is the most talking points of the weekend in terms of VAR and just overall kind of energy, because this game had everything I think you can get. Hearts 3, Celtic 4. Celtic obviously come from behind to win. Lawrence Shankland, the first player to score a hat-trick against Celtic domestically since 1982, which is a stat I couldn't quite believe. But Paul, before we get into talking about the decisions, this game was literally non-stop. It was, I mean, if you were a neutral, you certainly get your money's worth on Saturday.
Yeah, I think even before, if you hadn't even seen the game, just looking at the result, you think, wow, that must have been a cracker. And like you say, you throw in a few of the talking points, and it just makes for more discussion. But Lawrence Shankland, he's proven, a goal scorer, and he's certainly hit the ground running with Hearts. So it's a good start for him. And like you say, scoring 3, all right, a couple of penalties, but you still put the ball in the net, and it's great for him. But incredible game. When
you kind of look at this game, like, Paul, were Hearts unlucky not to get anything from the game? Because I think in the one hand, when we kind of watched this game, Hearts were constantly putting the fight up to Celtic. Celtic obviously were going to dominate possession. Hearts were riddled with injuries and have been for the majority of the season. Hearts were just fighting in the game constantly, but Celtic had to claw back so many times just to get back into the game, coming from behind, and it was just one of those games. It was so frantic that if it was a draw, both teams would have probably been all right with it. But how much credit does Celtic deserve for actually just kind of winning the game in the end up?
Yeah, massive credit. I think looking at the way Celtic have been under sort of Ange Postecoglou, they sort of come out the traps flying and seem to blow teams away in the first sort of half hour, even first half, say. So if your Heart's kind of looking at it, you get your noses in front and then get pegged back again. And at 3-3, you're probably thinking, right, we'll take a point. But then, Celtic keep going. But I think it just shows you the depth of Celtic's squad. Mm-hmm. They've got people that come on and change the game, and Greg Taylor coming on. I guess I don't think he was getting put on to score the winner, but it turned out that way, and it just shows you that let's say the squad that they have. But you can see in Robbie Nielsen's comments after the game, he was really disappointed in terms of he felt they should have really got something out of the game. I think scoring 3 goals at home to the Old Firm, you would like to think you would get at least a draw. They will be disappointed. I think a lot of people always say anything you can get against the Old Firm's a bonus, but certainly when you're in the positions they were in, then they will be disappointed with that.
Lewis, the decisions obviously didn't impact massively on the game. There's 3 that obviously stick out, and they are contentious. All 3 of us will probably have different opinions on them, but VAR did do its job. It did, when it was asked to work, it did work for one of the situations. The first one I want to touch on is the Ralston disallowed goal. Now, my understanding of that is, if the referee blows the whistle before Ralston heads that ball, VAR cannot interfere. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm of the exact same mindset. I found that a strange call. I must say, I don't see what the issue was personally. For me, I think it should have stood. So yeah, no, I agree with you there, Scott.
And there's no doubt in my mind about the Hearts penalty. It's a pretty stonewall penalty.
It is, yeah.
I mean, it's the thing that gets me is that how's it not given in normal time? Because
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Like,
I think that's the worry why it wasn't given in the first place. Yeah.
But that's what VAR's for. That's like if there's a contentious decision, Lewis, as you just pointed out 2 minutes ago about the time it took for the referee to get told to go and have a look at St Mirren, it was the same at this game. Why is it taking? Why is it taking so long? Why is it? I know we're only a weekend in and it's still to be ironed out and that, but 3.5 minutes it took for the referee to have a look. Surely, if that is a contentious decision, the referee should be called over almost instantly, because at the end of the day, VAR's not there to re-referee the game. VAR's there to be a tool. So why is the referee not been asked to go straight over?
Yeah, because you would have thought, if there was any kind of element in Nick Walsh's mind, that he would have immediately gone over to the monitor. And the fact that, he let play continue, I'm thinking of another decision. But, if there is any doubt, he needs to be going over to the monitor straight away and, communicating with his colleague at Caledonia House, because, the longer, football fans, they've got a short enough fuse as it is. They won't want to be spending, 4 or 5 minutes waiting for a decision to be made. And in particular, with this scenario, it's fairly clear cut. I'm not sure exactly where Nick Walsh is positioned for the Hearts penalty, but it's quite clear Cameron Carter-Vickers brings Devlin and catches Devlin first. And, it's a strange one. I mean, I do, fair enough, the referees, it is new to them as well, and it is going to take time, but they have received, training on this over the last year, I believe. So they should kind of be up to standard with it by now. So certainly it's something that they're going to have to improve over the coming weeks.
And then the third one is obviously the penalty with the penalty that wasn't with Michael Smith. Now, Michael Smith knows that it's his hand. Now, I do think it's a penalty. I do think it is a penalty. But VAR doesn't interfere. Now, is that... I know I'm probably giving you I'm turning you into Charlie Richmond here, Lewis, but I'm asking you referee questions that I'm watching as a fan thinking, what is that? Why is VAR not interfered there? Because even if it's a contentious decision, surely it should interfere. Is that a penalty? Is that a handball? Is that a deliberate handball from Michael Smith?
Yes, in my opinion, it is. Clearly strikes his forearm. I think anyone that watched Sports Scene as well last night sees that back. You're completely miffed as to why that's been totally missed by VAR. So VAR has been introduced with the idea that it's going to on any minor incident. Yeah. We're talking fingernails. It's that minuscule. So a clear handball inside the box, it's quite clear. Fair enough, Michael Smith, he's not got his arm raised, but he's got it out. It's out on his left-hand side. It's away from his body, and it clearly strikes his hand. So for VAR to miss a decision like that, it completely myths me. I don't know who is the VAR.
Stephen McLean.
Yeah, well, he... I'm totally miffed by that, to be honest. It's a really, really weird call to let that one go.
Paul, what's the three VAR, the three things that VAR interferes with? What's your thoughts on them? Do you think what's your overall opinion on the decisions? Do you think that the referee was right to not blow for the penalty for the third one? Like, give us your opinion on the
No, well, I think obviously the first one with the Carter Vickers one, as I said, I think the worry was being, from my memory, I think it was right. The referee was almost looking right at it. So I think the worry is why is he not seen that decision? But I guess you could argue, well, VAR's done its job, because I think we all agree that was a penalty. Certainly the one it wasn't given, I think we're probably on agreement it was a penalty as well. And I think that's where I'm at, going, well, why hasn't VAR interfered with that? And I think we all seen the look on his face. He knew it was a penalty as well, didn't he? And he's got away with one, sort of thing. So I think, it's I think we've seen down south how long it's taken, and there's still decisions that people aren't in agreement. So, as you said, it's the first weekend. So, I think, it's not the only game. We'll probably talk about others that the VAR's been involved in. I don't know whether it's going to be like this every week, or it's just the luck, unfortunateness that it was the week one. But yeah, there's a number of decisions that certainly been talking points.
It's ironic that was going to happen as well in week one, given how it went seamlessly at Easter Road on Friday night, I thought.
It's that thing as well, and I kind of want to ask your thoughts on this, Lewis. Like, after the game, the usual thing that we kind of see when things go against, like John Hartson in the studio saying about that Celtic had to beat two teams today, that I don't agree with that route, going that direction with why is that playing to a gallery, or is that really insinuating something that you believe that something's towards with VAR already?
Yeah. I think that for a pundit like John Hartson to come out with a line like that, I thought was poor from him, to be honest. He normally comes out and he gives a fairly good assessment, but some of his post-match comments yesterday I thought were a bit strange, to say the least. I felt he was kind of playing up a bit to the public, as you say, with those. And I think Hearts deserve a fair deal of credit yesterday. As you said, you talked about the amount of injuries they've got. They lost Stephen Humphreys as well in the first. I've got to remember Shanklin didn't even start the game. So to bag a hat-trick's impressive. So I don't feel he really gave Hearts enough credit for yesterday's performance. Some strange things he said.
But a massive win for Celtic, obviously. The result at Ibrox means they go 4 points clear at the top of the table. Rangers, a very frustrating performance. 1-1 draw against Livingston. Livingston deserve enormous credit. An early goal for Joe Newbley, and they just made Rangers frustrated. They're just a typical Livingston game plan against a team like Rangers. They just make it hard, and Rangers just couldn't get anything going. A late goal from John Lundstrom rescues a point, but Lewis, it is now looking very, very bleak for Rangers at the moment. We spoke in this show last week that after a Liverpool game that Rangers would need to put in a serious performance to ease tension after that Liverpool defeat. That's been 3 in a row where it's been very dull, and now to the point where I'm asking what is actually the attacking plan here, because one thing, and I want to get Paul's thoughts on this later on, if you're a manager and you have Jack Fitzwater and Obalai against you, two really physical players in the defence for Livingston, the last thing you should be doing is putting crosses into the box. Now, that's where I want to get Paul's thoughts on. As a manager, would you do that? But Lewis, how bleak does the situation look for Rangers at the moment? Because it's just not, when you're getting booed off 2 games in a row and losing points at home in the league, it doesn't bode well.
Yep. Yeah. The last couple of performances have just been shambolic, really. They're lacking a lot of creativity. In particular, I thought the amount of crosses that came in from the left-hand side yesterday, I think you see the amount of times Ryan Kent, his final ball into the box, let him down again. He's been a player that Rangers fans have been particularly frustrated with this season, given the drop-off in his level of performance this season. Livingston yesterday deserve a lot of credit, the way they kind of set up. David Martindale once again kind of outgunned Van Bronckhorst yesterday, and I think you could hear by the boos at the the team received at the end of the match and even at half time were merited. It was an insipid display. They really lacked any kind of. They never really looked like scoring. You know, they had a lot of opportunities in the game, and you know, they could have even stole it at the end with Lundstrom just heading over. But you just had that feeling that it was going to be one of them days for Rangers. You know, they'll be pleased in a way that they've got a result. But in terms of Van Bronckhorst's position, he certainly would have wanted a much more kind of convincing win, especially given their flat display against Dundee in midweek as well. You know, Van Bronckhorst, I think he spoke in his press conference afterwards that he does feel that he can turn around this situation. He does realise the fans' frustration, but it's the quality on the pitch. They might be able to churn out results of late, but the performances have been incredibly abject. You know, and I understand, you know, there's been a lot of kind of murmurings in the background about there's been a lot made about the Rangers recruitment in the summer. You know, Antonio Cholak's kind of been the only real success story. And, you know, whether or not Van Bronckhorst has had a huge say in the actual signing of players. You know, the likes of Ridvan Yilmaz barely kicked a ball. So, you know, I understand he has to work with the players. There's too many big game players at the moment, the likes of your Lundstroms, your Kents, your Taverniers even, just look completely off the boil and in need of a rest. And this run between now and the World Cup break is going to be really important for Rangers. They need to continue to keep grinding out results. Otherwise, any kind of, you know, another defeat for Van Bronckhorst and the Ibrox board might have to act soon.
Paul, obviously when a team like Livingston go 1-0 up after 5 minutes, it's any game plan you have goes out the window, because Livingston will obviously Livingston go there with a plan to not concede, and obviously when they go 1-0 up, it's even harder to get anything from the game. But when you're putting 73 crosses into the box, as obviously you've been a manager, when your game plan changes like that, what does that suggest? That, I mean, the three of us could sit here and say, why are Rangers putting 73 crosses into a Livingston box with two-man mountains at the back? That's my first thought. Mm-hmm. What does that say, do you think, from a Rangers perspective, that it just seemed to be just try and get the ball in to the mixer at any time? There's no, as Lewis said, there was zero creativity, there was zero lack of a kind of attacking plan to try and cut Livingston open with the ball down low. What does that say to you? Like, does that say that there isn't a plan, or it's not what is needed for a game like that?
I think the temptation always, if you've got a big striker, you know, if you're chasing a game, etc., it is just get into the box. But to me, that's, if that amount of crosses, that is their game plan, as you say. But it's a wrong one, really, in that sense. I think. I talk about Celtic's squad depth. It's not there with Rangers. And you talk about Ryan Kent's form, you know, and I actually heard, you know, listened to another podcast the other day, and they hit the nail on the head. He plays every week regardless, you know. Whereas you look at Celtic, if it's not working for them after 45 minutes, an hour, he'll take 3 off and put 3 on, and they're still doing the same. They're adding to it, but they all know the same jobs, and it works for them. Whereas I think with Rangers, there's players there that they'll start every week regardless. And I know lots of teams have that, but I think, like you say, when teams go to Ibrox or Celtic Park and want to sit in, you need to think of something different. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a change of personnel, a substitute, you know, Scott Wright, you know, I think he's divided opinion amongst the Rangers fans, but I think he can create something, you know, and guys like that. Do you give him certainly like a game like yesterday? You know, chuck him on and go and see what he can do. I think it obviously didn't work, and psychologically, I think going into the game, the Celtic result, maybe people might not want to say that, but the players will have been looking out for that result, and they're thinking, "Oh, Celtic are away to drop points here," and then all of a sudden they don't. So, you know, you're kicking off your game, you're needing to win. As you say, you lose a goal and you're then chasing it. But full credit to Livingston.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's done an incredible job and keeps doing it. And let's say full credit to them. And I think sometimes when teams get results against the old firm, it almost gets overlooked, and it's all about how poor Celtic or Rangers are. Well, let's give them credit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's with Livingston. I mean, Lewis, you were on at the start of the season where we were talking about Livingston. Is this the year where they've run the race? But when you've got a manager like David Martindale, he just always seems to pull it out of the bag. And even with the red card as well. Now, as a red card, VAR interferes and gets that one spot on because it is a red card. But it makes his job even harder because you've then got to. I mean, a team like Rangers, obviously, it's no matter if they're not creating anything on the day, they still have the ball majority of the time. So you're always going to be backed up. And with 10 men, that's even more difficult. We saw that with Rangers earlier on in the season against Hibs. They couldn't just let go of that pressure. David Martindale will be just frustrated not to get the victory, but what credit he deserves for that performance. Just getting in there with a game plan, and to be fair to the defence, they defended with their lives and done it so well.
Yep, they're always incredibly well set up, and he's doing it off one of the lowest budgets probably the Scottish Premiership's ever seen. I actually had one of my Rangers supporting pals mentioned who was at the game on Saturday. He spoke to me afterwards, and he said that he would take Joel Newbley in that Rangers team right now. He was that impressed with him, which is huge credit to Martindale. I mean, I know he spent the time out on loan, Newbley, but he seems to be enjoying a real breakthrough season. But yeah, as you said, David Martindale, he's got an incredibly good eye for a player, not necessarily a player that we will know much about coming to Scottish football, but given the resources he's got, and to go to one of the best teams in Scotland on their own patch and frustrate them, I thought incredible performance from Livingston yesterday. And they'll be frustrated in the end that they couldn't hold on and claim that historic first win at Ibrox, but it's been a magnificent start again for Livingston, and who's to say that they won't be able to continue it? They seem to get written off as relegation contenders every year, but they always continue to defy the odds.
Yeah, and again for Rangers, we'll touch on Rangers next game later on. It doesn't get any easier. They go to Napoli in the next game, and I would certainly be dreading that if I was a Rangers fan. But the next game I want to touch on is Kilmarnock 1, Ross County 0, a massive game down at the bottom of the table. Danny Armstrong showing his worth this season. Again, another terrific goal. Gives Kilmarnock a vital 3 points. Paul, obviously your former team, Ross County, if it wasn't for St Mirren scoring a winner, they'd be sitting bottom of the league. But it's another game where it shows their desperate lack of goals and just overall struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it's an early season 6-pointer, really, wasn't it? And no, it's a big 3 points for Kilmarnock, but as you say, it's not great reading for Ross County. And you could argue potentially they overachieved last year, but I think every year at that club, it's almost not say a rebuild, but there's a big turnover of players, and that's it doesn't work. It'll eventually come unstuck, and that's what's happened in the past, and they did well to get back into the Premier League, and it's going to be a long season for them. I think they did incredibly well last year. Nobody can take that away from them for sure. But lack of goals certainly is always got to be the problem. If you're not scoring, you're not winning games, and I think going down there they would have been looking to at least take a point. But that's like you say, that's in 3 points behind Kilmarnock now. So no, they've got a tough task ahead of themselves. And from a personal point of view, I hope they can get out of it for sure. Yeah. But I think it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, Lewis, Kilmarnock. Can I switch gears to Kilmarnock? A massive result in Tuesday to get into the semi-finals of the Premier Sports Cup, and they rode the emotions into a weekend performance. It wasn't the best game, I think, for a neutral. I don't think there was a lot of really good football being played, but Kilmarnock got the result. Danny Armstrong's a man of the moment. and just a massive 3 points. And one of those games, as Paul says, a really early relegation 6-pointer where both teams just really need that victory just to give themselves a bit of breathing space for the bottom of the league. And Kilmarnock have just worked out to be a great week for Kilmarnock so far.
Yeah, I think that's 4 unbeaten now at home, 3 wins during that run as well. So
yeah,
they seem like they're adapting back well to the top flight again after a bit of a stuffy start. Huge blow, of course, losing Kyle Lafferty as well. You know, he's been their main talisman for 10 games, I think it is. So, as you said, it's up to guys like Danny Armstrong now, your Ronan McKenzie, players that know the club, that been around the club for a long time, to really step up. And Armstrong, he was a very talented player, I must say. I watched him when he was at Wraith numerous times, and he looked like he could really cut it in the Scottish Premiership. He had that touch of quality. And you know, it was a brilliant run and finish. Just the way he kind of guided the ball over the keeper into the top corner yesterday was excellent. I thought against Dundee United as well on Tuesday night. And yeah, you know, Kilmarnock, the only way is up for them at the moment, I think, under Derek McInnes, who I thought, you know, was a good appointment at the time. He's kind of brought a degree of stability back to the club. He's got them obviously into a cup semi-final. And, you know, I think, you know, if they can add maybe, you know, 1 or 2 added bits of quality in January, that they could potentially be, you know, borderline top 6 candidates with the way they're playing. As you said, Ross County, you know, hugely disappointing for them. Paul's right in saying it's probably stemmed from their turnover. They haven't really been able to replace guys like Hungbo, Charles Cook from last season. I think they've only scored, was it 6 in their first 12 matches?
Yeah.
Or something. Doesn't make for good reading for them. You know, it's a worrying spell. And as you said, you know, at the type of game like this at Rugby Park, you're looking at it, a team kind of around them in the table. They need to be taking something from that, because if you look at the next period of games, I think they've got Hibs, Celtic, Hearts and St Mirren or something during that time. And realistically, you're looking at the St Mirren game, that's a must 3 points, because you're struggling to see where else they might pick up results from between now and the World Cup break.
We'll move into the next game. A very even game at Fir Park by all reports, but Aberdeen picked up their first away win of the season, a 2-1 win over Motherwell, which takes them to 3rd in the league. Paul, as I say, very even game. I don't think both sides would have been, I think if you'd said this would be a draw, I think both sides would have took it. But Aberdeen just more clinical on the day. Obviously, the first goal was helped by VAR, but Aberdeen were just a clinical team on the day.
Yeah, I think so. It's a great 3 points for them. I know, so well, it's 3 defeats on the bounce for Motherwell now, which but I actually think over the years Aberdeen's record at Fir Park's not bad, but I think, you know, it's still, as you say, going into the game, maybe a point they would have been happy with, but to get all 3 is great, and to move them up to 3rd, which, you know, speaking to a lot of Aberdeen fans, I don't think, I'm not saying they're not impressed, but I think they still think they've got more to come, and that's a good thing, I guess, as an Aberdeen fan. If you're sitting 3rd and you still don't think you've quite clicked, so I think there's still things to go on there. But in terms of Motherwell, like I say, it's a bad run they're on, but I think Stevie Ham will turn it around. They had that initial bounce when he came in, which always happens, but you know, I think he will do well long term with them, and I don't think there's much to worry about there.
Lewis, Jim Goodwin said that physicality won the day in terms of Aberdeen. Motherwell been a tough nut to crack, but Aberdeen obviously Duke with the winning goal, just that clinical edge they had on the day. Fair assessment for Jim Goodwin, you would say? Yeah,
I'd say so. Big 3 points, as Paul alluded to. Given their away form hasn't made for great reading either, so to go down to Fir Park's always quite a difficult venue to kind of go in and grind a result out in. A couple of obviously talking points in the game. Should Motherwell been awarded a penalty right at the end? It looked to me like Anthony Stewart had his hands all over Ricky Lammy's jersey.
I think it's a penalty.
But I talked about Aberdeen in the season preview we recorded, Scott, and I just had a feeling that with the players they brought in the summer that they would be up there, back there, contending for that third place again. And I'm still hopeful because they brought in guys like Miovski and Duke in particular, Louis Lopez. He's been fantastic the last couple of games. I thought his movement, his work rate, he seemed to cover every blade of grass on that pitch. I thought he was outstanding. And Miovski's goal as well, obviously initially flagged for offside, but VAR gets that one correct. It's just a sensational finish, you know.
Yeah.
Liam Kelly as well. It's not like he's down early or anything. He's still at full stretch to claw over him. It's just a fantastic piece of skill to dink the ball over the keeper. So yeah, no, a huge result for Aberdeen, given their struggles on the road in recent times. Motherwell, of course, will be disappointed with the goals they conceded, but I watched them a couple of weeks back, Scott, and Stevie Hamill's got them playing some good football. I do believe they'll be okay. I think they're going through a bit of a bad patch at the moment, but I just wanted to mention to Paul, did you always, when you played with Stevie Hamill at Motherwell, did he always strike you as a manager material?
I always thought a coach, yeah, for sure. He was certainly, I think MD that's played with him, he was a big character within the dressing room, and very knowledgeable, great experience. And when I was there, obviously he was coming towards the end of his career as well. He, started to take his coaching badges, so I always knew it was something he was keen to do. And like I say, he's got the respect and the love of the fans in a sense, so that starts you off on a good foot. And like I say, he did get that initial bounce with a few good results. So it's I guess is everything, and it's obviously his first real managerial position. So it's interesting to see how you bounce back from a few defeats and see what he does. But no, I'm like I say, I think he will do well long term, and given the time, and I think he'll get it for sure. Because of his status as a player at the club, I think he will get that time. But I'm agreement with you. I think they'll be fine.
Next game of the weekend, St Mirren climbed to fourth. A compelling contest against Dundee United, 2-1. VAR Celtic is part to play as well. The St Mirren got a goal disallowed just before Alex Greaves sealed the winner just before the end of the game. Lewis, you were at the game. What was your overall assessment on the game as a whole?
St Mirren deserved winners, Scott. Really, it's a really good game, actually. Really good game of football. Two teams closely matched on paper, you'd say, squad-wise, but they really went at it. I thought St Mirren, they're creating some really good opportunities. Curtis Main and Jonah Ayunga up front, they're a real handful to defend against it. Dundee United looked a bit lost, I think, given the fact that they had a disappointing result on Tuesday night. They never really made a serious impression on this game, in all honesty. It changed when Stephen Fletcher came off the bench. He lifted them a bit, but St Mirren were good value for the win yesterday. Possibly could have scored a couple of more. The woodwork denied them 3 times during the game, and obviously the VAR decision, as you mentioned, on initial viewing, couldn't get my head around it. We were all a bit miffed as to what the actual decision was for. Turns out Bacchus has obviously caught Behic with his trailing arm. So a bit of a strange call. I personally still don't think it was enough to rule out the goal. But no, St Mirren deserved winners. I thought Dundee United look a team short of confidence at the moment. Don't get me wrong, they've got a couple of really good players. I thought Behic in particular looks a really, really good talent. It's the first time I've seen him up close. He's got a great first touch and great eye for a pass as well. So I think Liam Fox is a bold appointment as well, given his lack of managerial experience. I know he's been in and around the coaching scene for a while, but to go into a club the size of Dundee United as your first gig, it will be a tough task, I think.
I thought Stephen Fletcher come on, obviously get the equaliser as well, but it certainly, Dundee United did look a different team when he came on, Lewis.
He did, yeah. He's still, despite his age now, he's coming into the latter stages of his career, but he's still got that real bit of quality when you need to. I think, the composure he displayed to kind of side foot the ball home in amongst a crowded penalty area for the equaliser was particularly impressive. And Dundee United, they changed their shape slightly. I think it was Niskanen he brought off. It was pretty ineffective throughout the match, and he stuck Fletcher up front, and he made a real difference. I think he's a huge figure as well in the dressing room, given there's a lot of kind of younger lads in and around him. So Liam Fox did touch on that afterwards as well. I think having him fully firing will be important.
Paul, there's two different kind of sides of these two teams. I think with St Mirren, you've got Stephen Robinson. Obviously, this week he's been linked with the Northern Ireland job. He's a man in demand. I think going from that interview, that he's not really focused on it, but he's getting the best out of a group of players that you would say maybe aren't certainly aren't top six level. You would say on paper, but on the other hand, Liam Fox does have that squad where he does have a kind of top six caliber squad in paper, and there's just something missing. What's the kind of big differences between the two sides you've thought so far this season?
Well, I think first and foremost, Stephen Robinson, we talk about Davy Martindale, how well he's done. So we've got to give credit to Stevie Robinson. I think the first few results of the season, there was a bit of unrest there, and he's just shown. But I think the front two, just touched on Lewis, are a handful for anyone, and they showed that, when they beat Celtic a few weeks ago. And I just think, like you said, you look at United's squad, and how many times over the years have people said on paper a team should be doing this and whatever. So, but you have to go out on the pitch and do it. But I think you're right, Stephen Fletcher, he's a quality player. He's got that experience, and as you get a bit older, the legs might go, etc. But you still got that quality there. So if you can get the younger players to have the energy rounding about him, I think he's a key player for them. Coming off the bench and scoring, obviously not picking up the points, but I think he's got to be a big player for them in the season to come.
Lewis, is there any speculation, do you think, regarding Robinson going to Northern Ireland? Do you think it is just paper talk, or is there maybe more to it?
We asked him afterwards for his take on it, and he said that there's been no contact whatsoever, and he believes it is paper talk. He said, if anything, we'll probably hear something before him. You can see why he's in the running for it, given his experience. He's a top manager, but at the moment, I feel like he's building something really positive at St Mirren at the moment. I touch on just off air there about the amount of options they've now got up front as well. I can't remember a St Mirren team in the past having so many different attacking options. Now you brought on Alex Grieve yesterday. Anytime I see Alex Grieve, I think he looks fantastic. Great movement for the goal. And Eamon Brophy, who can't really get a sniff this season. We know his talents as well, obviously, getting into the Scotland International. I think St Mirren under Stephen Robinson, I feel like, considering he's not been at the club for a huge amount of time, I still feel like he's in the midst of a project here, and I'm not sure the Northern Ireland job at this stage in his career would be enough to lure him away.
And St Mirren are sitting fourth in the table, so he's certainly got reason to stay. The final game it was actually the first game of the weekend in the Premiership, but it's the final game we're going to talk about. Hibs 1, St Johnstone 2. Hibs had a really good start to the game. For the first 60 minutes, I thought Hibs were really, really good. Kyle McGuinness gets sent off with 20 minutes to go, and the game changed completely on its axis at that point. Nicky Clark and Stevie May scoring to give St Johnstone a huge 3 points and a 2-1 victory and a big comeback. Paul, I think it's very, very simple to say that Hibs were brilliant up until the red card, and then St Johnstone just took advantage of it.
Yeah, and that's a very much 3 points loss. You're going into the game sitting in third. You want a home game against St Johnstone. They're going in, must be confident of winning that. But yeah, sending offs changed the game clearly. And if you're St Johnstone, obviously great result, great 3 points. Stevie May coming off the bench again and coming up with the goods, which he's done so many times in the past for St Johnstone. And yeah, no, great 3 points, but I think Hibs will be really disappointed with that one.
Lewis, any disagreement with that? I think that's a very accurate statement that it was one of those games that just turned whenever the red card played its part.
Yep, yeah, I think the important thing for St Johnstone, I mean, obviously Kyle McGuinness getting sent off for two very needless challenges. The second one in particular, it's I think I'm right to think it's in the middle of the park. He just doesn't need to make it. But I think for St Johnstone, given the fragility last season, Scott, it's the type of game going 1-0 down at Easter Road, they could easily have capitulated. And albeit, the sending off has helped them. They've really kind of dug deep and managed to grind out results. Hibs will be hugely disappointed. It's two simple crosses into the box that they can't defend. Two very good headers, I must say. I thought Nicky Clark's one in particular was very good. But St Johnstone this season, I think Callum Davidson recruited well in the summer. We're starting to see that now. He's got a bit more options that he can call on, even from the bench this season. I think he brought on the likes of Jamie Murphy, David Wotherspoon there. These are good top professionals for the Scottish Premiership, and I think St Johnstone, that's a big win for them there. That's the type of game last season that they would have lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a big 3 points for St Johnstone. Hibs, although they're sitting okay, I thought obviously at the start of the season they really struggled. They went on a good run, but this week been a difficult week for them, obviously, but losing at home, and then obviously last weekend I thought their performance last weekend was embarrassing actually, but they did seem to pick up from that. I think it is going to be weird for Hibs. I think that at times we're going to see Hibs playing some terrific stuff, but they're going to be exposed sometimes as well, especially against better teams, and I think we saw that last weekend. So I think Hibs could be a bit of a kind of 1 week they could be great, next week they could be terrible, and I think that's just going to be Hibs this season. But we'll move into the Championship. We'll just go through the results, and I'll ask you for your result of the weekend. Arbroath 1, Hamilton 0, Ayr United 2, Cove Rangers 2, Dundee 0, Morton 0, Inverness 1, Wraith Rovers 1, Partick Thistle 0, Queen's Park 4. Paul, the tightest league in the world, keeps on giving. 2 wins, 3 draws, and what was your result of the weekend? Because it's a weird league this season.
Very much so. I'd go Arbroath. Talk about 6-pointers, etc. But that's certainly, if Hamilton win that game, they're almost cut adrift. So it's a great win for them. It gets them off the foot of the table. Does that kickstart them to improve things? What a season they had last year, and it was always going to be the case. Could they replicate that? And it was always going to be difficult for them. And it's been a struggle. So I think that's a big 3 points for them. Hamilton, it's not great for them. I know they got their win last weekend, but they've been poor of late, and they'll be really disappointed with that one. But yeah, I'll go with that just purely to see if that can kickstart our growth season.
Lewis, I think the winners of the weekend in that league are definitely Queen's Park. A 4-0 win at Partick Thistle, and Inverness drawing means it's tight again. There's only a point between first and third. Ayr and Dundee and Morton are also creeping behind. There's only 3 points between first and sixth.
Yeah. I don't think many people saw that result coming yesterday. Particularly, by all accounts, it sounded like Ian McCall was very pleased with the way his team played in the first half. It sounded like they created enough opportunities to
missed a penalty as well.
Yeah, to go in 2 or 3 up. So what happened in the second half to collapse the way they did was a bit of a surprise. I thought, even in midweek against Aberdeen, albeit they were comfortably beaten in the end, I thought they showed up well at times in spells during the game, particularly at the start of the second half. So yeah, no, that's a huge result for Queen's Park. Obviously a lot going on behind the scenes there at the moment as well, so they could easily be distracted by things like that, but they picked up a couple of impressive results so far early doors, and they look like a team that could be certainly in amongst the promotion mix if they can sustain this run that they're on. I think for Thistle in particular, the important thing for them will be the way they react now. They've obviously got the game against Ayr United on Tuesday night down at Somerset. McCall going back to one of his former clubs, so that'll be a huge game for them. But Queen's Park deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah, absolutely. A massive 3 points for Queen's Park. And as well as Paul says, Arbroath, everybody knows how much a fan I am of Dick Campbell. And I think he's been unlucky this season, but to get that win, as you say, I think they could have been in serious trouble if that result had went the other way, as Paul said. So, again, this league is that you're not going to see Andy run away with this league. This is going to go down to the final day with probably 4 teams in the mix. This is going to be an entertaining season all round. League 1, Clyde 1, Queen of the South 2, Falkirk 2, Kelty 3, FC Edinburgh 3, Airdrie 1, Montrose 2, Dunfermline 0, and Peterhead 0, Alloa 2. Lewis, the result that jumps out to me immediately as Montrose ended Dunfermline's unbeaten start to the season.
Yeah, huge result for Montrose. I think Stuart Petrie is a top manager. I really do. I'm pleasantly surprised that he's still at Montrose. He hasn't been snapped up by another club. But I think actually he was rumoured for the Dunfermline job before James McPake came in. He does incredibly well with what he has to work with. I think impressively for Montrose over the last couple of seasons, they've used the loan market particularly well. I know they've managed to get in a couple of boys from St Johnstone and things like that, and they seem to have really made a difference. It was young Matty Wright from Ross County, I think, that scored both the goals yesterday. So that will be something that's particularly pleasing for them. But yeah, disappointing result for Dunfermline, given the start they've made to the campaign.
Paul, one team that jumps out to me as well for their stunning run is Kelty Hearts, going to Falkirk and winning 3-2, and that's a 4th league win in a row. It looked really bleak for Kelty at the start of the season, but now 12 points from 4 games, and they're now sitting 7th, and a lot of breathing space behind in front of Clyde and Peterhead, who obviously lost again this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I think the way they've came into the leagues, what they did in League 2, getting in the way they sort of blitzed their way through that, I think people just thought they would continue maybe on the same trajectory as what Cove have done, but poor start to the season, I think, surprised a lot of people. So they're probably coming good now and showing where they probably think they should be hitting form, and like the rest of us looking on, think they should be. And change of manager, I think at a time where it was a bit of a surprise, is always a difficult one as well, I think. And so no, I think they're on a good run, so hopefully it continues for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that League 2, it's another league. It gives a bit of breathing space as well for like Clyde and Peterhead. Lewis, they're really going to struggle now, aren't they? That's another 2 defeats, and it's now looking very bleak for them.
Yeah. I said in the season preview that I thought Peterhead were just nailed on for relegation this season, and I stick by that. They've struggled massively so far. They just don't look like winning at all. In all honesty, you look at a game yesterday at home to Alloa, you're thinking, chance here to pick up a point or maybe grapple 3. But I don't see where they're buying a win at the moment. And as you said, Clyde, I think that's 9 defeats in a row. So Danny Lennon's going to be under huge pressure there to keep his job.
We'll touch quickly in the Scottish Cup. Just obviously a couple of results that I want to get your thoughts on. Lewis, in particular, you, Fraserburgh beating Stranraer. Was that the result of the weekend for you?
Yes, massively, yep. A great result. I think Fraserburgh have got a good record at the Belsley against SPFL opposition over the last couple of years. They've claimed the scalps of Montrose. I think the last couple of years, they've always managed to pick up a big win. So I thought beating Stranraer yesterday, who've been going okay in League 2, was a particularly impressive result. And I hope, fingers crossed, that they get a big team in the third round.
Paul, was there any results in the Scottish Cup that caught your eye? I'm just looking through the kind of Highland teams. Bucky obviously went out to Broomhill at home for Martin, your old club, or beat Carnoustie. Obviously Turriff lost away to Dunipace. There's a couple of Highland League, but obviously Fraserburgh would be the big winners of the weekend in that league, I'd imagine.
Yeah, for sure. I think any team from Highland, Lowland, whatever, if you can beat SPFL opposition, it's a big result. And yeah, as Lewis says, Belsley is a very, very difficult place to go. I know that. And Fraserburgh certainly used that to their advantage, and it showed yesterday with the result. And I think, looking for Martin as well, you expect them to go through, looking at the teams, but it could always be a sticky one going away to a team like Carnoustie. So, fair play to them for getting through. And I was a little bit surprised at the Turriff result, to be honest. I thought they would have taken care of Dunny Pace, but it wasn't to be. So no, it was a bit of mixed fortunes. And obviously, but like I say, with Bucky losing out to Broomhill, so it was mixed fortunes for the Highland League, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've got action coming up this week in the Champions League and the Europa Conference League. Big game for Celtic, obviously, to try and stay in Europe in some capacity. They host Shakhtar Donetsk. A win would mean they still have a slight chance of getting Europa League football, but a defeat would mean obviously elimination from Europe as a whole. Paul, what do you think? Can Celtic get a result at home on Tuesday night?
I think they can. I think I know you can argue that he hasn't changed his style of play in the Champions League, and some, fair play. He's went and had a go at it, right? But some people might disagree with that. But I think it can be exciting at times, and the energy the team's got and the way that they play is great. So no, I certainly think they can get a result, and it is, like you say, it's a must-win really if they're looking to stay in Europe. So I'm sure that the fans will get right behind them, and it's cliche as anything, but they're like a 12th man, certainly in a European night for sure. So no, I think they can get a result on Tuesday.
Lewis, what do you think? Celtic, do you fancy them at home to Shakhtar?
I do, yeah. I don't see any reason why they can't get a positive result. I think, what's that, 14 goals in the last 3 games. They are scoring, that's obviously been their Achilles heel. It'll be a strange feeling, I think, for Celtic fans this season. It's great to obviously being back in the Champions League, but given the amount of chances, they've competed well in pretty much every game, and given the amount of chances they've created as well, and not taking them will be a huge disappointment, because you're looking at, if they do manage to take a couple of those, then they might not be sitting on 1 point. They could be looking at challenging for second, So it'll be a frustrating one to look back on. But yes, it's Shakhtar at home. Shakhtar, I think they've got a good record of qualifying for the Champions League. They're, I think they obviously lost with the situation out there in Ukraine. They obviously lost a lot of their better Brazilian players, which is a blow. But they've got a couple of really top quality players. I think they need to keep the boy Mudryk quiet.
Yeah, they certainly do. Yeah,
he was particularly impressive over in Poland. So he'll be one that they need to keep an eye out on. But yeah, no, I think Celtic have enough quality to come away. I'm going 2-1.
2-1, big call. I do think Celtic could win. I think they've nothing to lose. That's what's the harm? Go for it. Try and get something out of the game. Shakhtar, as you say, I really like the boy Mudryk. I think he is going to be a top player, and I think Celtic have got a big chance of getting a result. But one team I do not think of any chance of getting a result is Rangers. They go to Naples on Wednesday night. A really high flying Napoli team, sitting top of Serie A. I think they're already through in the group. Top class team. Paul, I could not think of 2 teams more different in terms of form at the moment. Napoli flying, Rangers certainly aren't. These dark clouds are gathering round Ibrox. Could they be opened up even more on Wednesday night if the result is as bad as we fear?
Sometimes it's when you least expect that a team pick up a result, but no, I think you're right here. I can't see them getting a result over there. It's going to be very difficult, and I think the results in Europe have been poor this year, and like we've touched on, even their performances of late in domestic football, hasn't been to many people's likings, and it's been a struggle. So I think this is only going to add to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's woes at the moment. Yeah,
Lewis, if the result is what we think it could be, what could that do to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst?
Oh, hugely damaging. It's a difficult one to say, Scott, because Rangers have got the stat. I don't know if you've noticed it, minus 15 goal difference in the group. They're only 4 goals away from conceding to become the worst team ever in the Champions League group stages. That's obviously something they'll be desperate to avoid, but they're coming up against Napoli's side, who have been free scoring of late. They're absolutely scoring for fun, I think, in Serie A as well the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be incredibly difficult, and I think I can't see them getting anything at all from this match. I really can't. And what it might mean for Van Bronckhorst, there's the Rangers board in the past haven't acted too deliberately. They've always kind of bided their time, but I don't know. Depending on obviously they don't want to capitulate the way they did against Liverpool in that second half. If they can go over there and put on a decent showing and maybe go down 1 or 2 by 2 goals, but he's on a sugary peg. He's on a sugary peg, and another heavy defeat could be the end of his tenure.
It could be a very bad night for Rangers. I think you've got a team like Napoli, and they're drawing 0-0 with Roma as we speak. So they're maybe getting into this game, maybe looking to hurt an opponent, not getting a goal against a Jose Mourinho team. I think Jose Mourinho will be setting up. I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst needs to. With Rangers, obviously they've nothing to play for. They're not getting anything out of this European campaign, and I think it'd probably be beneficial to focus on domestic, because European's out the window for me this season. But in terms of Rangers, we saw this last season. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst can tactically adapt to in a European game. That's why Rangers done so well last season in Europe. But it's that thing as well, Paul, that I'm sure you'll agree with, that when you're in that situation, when you're getting booed off the park, it always seems to me it's when, not if. And that's the thing for me. Like, I don't think this could come at a worse time for Van Bronckhorst going up against a team like Napoli.
I think you're right. It's almost a when and not if, and it would take something extreme for him to turn it around. To be honest, looking in on it, and yeah, going there on Wednesday night is going to be very difficult. But like you alluded to, last season they did show in European football how they changed the way they played and the way they set up. But you're then going Champions League. It's just that step up again. And as results have shown, that they're off it a little bit. So no, I think it's going to be very difficult. And as you say, will Rangers pull the trigger if they were to lose? Depends on the manner. I think if you go down fighting, you might see fight another day. But like you say, if it's along the lines of the Liverpool performance, then it wouldn't look good.
Yeah, a team that's got nothing to lose on Thursday night is Hearts. They face RFS, I believe it's called. Lewis, they have nothing to lose. They've still got a small chance of qualifying. They would need Fiorentina to lose away. I think Fiorentina at home, I think, in the last game. So it's looking like it's going to be an early exit for Hearts, but they have nothing to play for. They beat this team in Latvia. They should be fancying their chances to get a result at home, especially after their performance on Saturday.
Yeah, hugely. I think, Robbie Nielsen will obviously do a lot of video analysis on that Celtic game, and there's plenty of positives for him to take from the match. I fancy Hearts to rack up a big win, actually. I think 4 or 5, I really do. I don't think RFS are up to much. I know they had a good result against Fiorentina in the first game, getting a point, but they've struggled since then. No, I just think, if Hearts... they'll be frustrated. I think they'll be a wee bit frustrated. There's a feeling going into that Fiorentina game that they could potentially have snuck a result. I'm talking about the home leg at Tynecastle, but they would be really disappointed with that night. Again, over in Florence last week? They again just leaking goals, which will be a huge cause for concern. But obviously, this team from Latvia aren't up to the standard Fiorentina are. So, no, I'll be confident of Hearts getting a big win under the belt.
Paul, what do you think? Do you fancy Hearts to get a home result?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to be confident, especially, like you say, the result they had over there. And then, having them at Tynecastle, I'm sure it'll be a full house and the fans behind them. So, no, I fully expect them to pick up the win. And, yeah, like you say, you're always hopeful of results elsewhere. But, all you can do at this point is a Hearts team is take care of your own result and then see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting week. It could be very good. It could be very bad. But as always, it'll be intriguing. We are going to wrap up the show there. I want to thank Lewis for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Thanks very much, Scott. Yep, really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. And to our special guest this week, Paul Lawson. Paul, thank you very much for coming on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure.
No, thanks, Scott. Really enjoyed it myself.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Could have picked better weeks, though.
We couldn't have picked better weeks. It's been a thoroughly entertaining weekend, and no doubt VAR will mean it'll be every Sunday will be the same. Thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in. Please follow us on social media for more consistent Scottish football coverage this week, and as well on our YouTube and podcast channels. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Cheers.